Take approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor, that the September 2nd, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Julik. All in favor? Carried. My apologies to the gallery for making you stand outside and wait. Our previous meeting went a little longer than we thought. Adoption of minutes for August 5th, 2025 regular meeting of council minutes. Councilor Noxena.
That the August 5th, 2025 regular meeting of council minutes be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Bertrand. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. August 26, 2025, special meeting of council minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Julik.
That the August 26, 2025 special meeting of council minutes be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes, council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Delegations, Canadian National Railway Company, Ted Norton, Constable, Pacific Division, intends to present the proclamation request for Rail Safety Week. Ted, welcome. Come on up to the delegation table there. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. My name is Ted Norton. I'm with CN Police in BC North, based out of Prince George. Thank you for having me speak today about rail safety. I just want to take a moment and follow up with the Rail Safety Week 2025 letter that was sent on behalf of CN's Janet Drysdale, Chief Stakeholder Relations Officer, Chief Police Sean Rill, and Operation Lifesaver Chris Day. For more than 20 years, CN has partnered with Operation Lifesaver to raise public awareness for dangers of crossing of trespassing on railway property. Through collaborative efforts, the community engagement, we strive to foster a culture of rail safety to prevent accidents across the network. By looking at each other and working together, we can keep our communities safe and prevent injuries and fatalities on or near railway property, and reducing the 261 railway crossing and trespassing accidents occurred in Canada in 2024, which resulted in 68 avoidable fatalities and 58 avoidable injuries. Because we can't do it alone, I'd ask on behalf of CN that the Council consider adopting the proposal 2025 Rail Safety Proclamation and declare September 15th to 21st Rail Safety Week in our community in Tumbler Ridge. And I've got a little presentation here that I can go for. Some of this is a little bit bigger picture items, but it gives a little bit of an idea. So follow up to rail safety signs and signals. I don't think there's too many signals, lights in the community, but those in other communities, a lot of people forget to, they see a flashing light, they forget what it's supposed to mean, they get nervous and potentially go through. So that's one thing that we're a little concerned of. And then on every crossing, you'll see a blue sign, a little placard sign, and it'll have a mile point and the subdivision. And that's really important to note, because if there's a stalled vehicle out or an accident that occurs, that's our first thing that our comm center or dispatch is going to look for. Next slide. So our network has 3 coastal accesses. It goes through the states. A lot of people aren't really aware of that part of it, but CN owns a large part of the railway in the states, and you can actually see the small line off of Prince George that sort of goes up and over, which is the Tumbler Ridge subdivision. And that just gives a couple of numbers of, the number of railway members employed, the approximate community investments, and that thing that CN has in Canada. Okay, next one. So environment benefits from shipping. It's 75% more or less emissions than going for truck. And it takes a lot of trucks off our highway. And it's a lot more efficient fuel-wise. So it's a 2-stroke diesel electric locomotives that we run. and they're quite efficient. Coal, sometimes we like to call these money trains because these are the ones that actually produce a lot of business for CN. And we've got the big port that's up and that a lot of the stuff is going over to as well. So 2023 number, they're 981 million. Next one. So 73% of CN's coal heads overseas, 41 in shipments originating from the US, and 59 in Canada. And then this sort of describes the different types of coal that's sort of going out and per ton. And next slide. So one thing that we've done recently is we've got actual firefighting equipment for CN trains. So they've got a 66-foot bulkhead flat car that has two 3,500-gallon tanks, and there's multiple pumpers on it that can pump the water out. That's in case you have like a spark from brakes igniting a fire. And next slide. And Rail Smart, that's what we're here for. So those are our colors that we have for Rail Safety Week that we often put out and throughout in communities, just to remind people to be safe along the tracks. So CN's commitment to be safe. Every year, approximately 2,100 North Americans are seriously injured or killed around the tracks and trains. Our goal is to reduce trespassing and crossing incidents to zero. Together, we can save lives. And resolution in support of Rail Safety Week. Okay, this is, it looks like it was last year's dates, but it still kind of follows. And next slide. So how can you help? There's lots of places that you can go to look up information. We talked about Operation Lifesaver, and if you look up CN Rail Smart, you'll find lots of other information there as well. And there's other social media links on Facebook on CN Rail. The number at the bottom there, that 1-800-465-9239, that's the number that you'll see at every placard as well, those blue and white placards that will be at every railway crossing. So that's important to note, because if you do have an emergency, just to note another train could be coming in the area, and then you don't want to have another collision potentially. And next one. And that's what I have for you guys today. I wanted to make it quick because I know sometimes there's questions, and I find more people get a little bit more out of the questions instead of some of the bigger picture items that are also very important. But if you guys have any questions you'd like to bring up, feel free. Here's your chance.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight and, giving us a slideshow, but also looking at the proclamation for Rail Safety Week. Any questions from council? I have a couple. It's too bad Tyler didn't come. Tyler made some promises last year. So I'm going to ask you the same thing. I think it's really, really important on Bridge. We might not have a whole bunch of railroad crossings, but we live out in a remote area, lots of ATVs, dirt biking, ORVs. Is, little short notice, but we have a fall fair on September 6th. That next year might be a different date. But I think it's important to have a table there for our youth and our children. Even our adults, to understand these train tracks are actually live. And, being out on the tracks, I seen the one slide there with the ATV on it. I've driven down Highway 29 towards Chetwynd and had to stop and help a young gaffer get his side-by-side off the train tracks that was stuck in between them. So I think it's really important to engage some of the remote communities that maybe don't have the railroad crossings within the community, but the track that comes down on the outside of us that, I'll be honest, lots of us cross them to go on our side-by-sides or whatever, fishing. Just go out on the trails. I think it's really important. And I know I mentioned that to Tyler last year. Actually, I mentioned to Tyler last year to look at maybe approaching School District 59 and trying to set up something there for the schools. Because it hits more than just Tonbridge education system. It could hit Chetwynd and Dawson Creek. And I think it's really, really important for these young people to understand that tracks are live, and when you are riding your ORV or even walking along them, sometimes you don't hear that train coming.
Yeah, definitely. And we've had, just doing a couple of Facebook searches, I've seen quite a few posts of people on using the rail equipment up here. Some of the parts that are really tough, and that's what is accessibility. So for, like potentially I'm in a patrol car, then you need almost a high rail to get to some of these places that people are pushing through to. And it is very dangerous. We did have an ATV strike in Salmon Valley, which was about 20 minutes from my house, and it hit home pretty quick. It was, thankfully they were able to jump off before the train passed, but the crew had no idea. It was that quick. They came around the corner, they jumped. Crew couldn't even see them. They thought they killed them both, but thankfully it was one of those hard lessons to learn, and they lost a brand new ATV out of it, but they walked away with their lives. And that's, I stopped by the RCMP station here just to talk to one of the members, and we had a good chat about some of the areas, and so I am interested in trying to get in and try, education, enforce, whatever sort of needed, because sometimes some of these communities with such a big area are hard to all reach, so.
Yeah, and I agree, and I mean, I'd say more education than enforcement at first. I always believe that. I mean, we all think we live, I mean, I'll be honest, when the mines were down, I mean, we use the train tracks all the time to go, some people use the train tracks all the time to go to the tunnels, but they were inactive at the time, right? But now that stuff's active, and I do think education's important. I mean, maybe enforcement if it's the same guy that's out there all the time, whether that's me or somebody else. But, again, I mentioned it to Tyler last year because I thought it was really important with Canuma coming on board, and definitely seeing more money trains, I think you called it, coming and leaving in the community, because we're all coal mine here, so we ship our coal off to Prince Rupert. But yeah, there's always an offer there to come up and do that. Councillor Julich.
Yeah, I echo strongly what Mayor Kauka said. I may have recreated and got into some trouble quite a few years ago. But I would even suggest the ATV Club in Trora, the two big recreation. Trora encompasses all of us, but and the ATV Club, president of the ATV Club is really good on social media about spreading awareness. And so I think if we can, I think like Mayor Kauka said,
It's funny you said that because I just found the group and I joined it, so.
Yeah, and
Sometimes what I've done is I've reached out to groups like that and just said, after if they accept me, I say, hey, by the way, this is who I am. If you guys are interested in something, let me know. What I'm gonna do is I'll leave my card. So you've got it there, and September 6th, I know is that Saturday?
It is. That's why I said, it's pretty, there's
Yeah.
always next year too.
Yeah, but it's good to get these in better before an accident occurs, right? So maybe I can see what works, but I know my supervisor would probably support coming back. It's just a matter of seeing if I can make it work, so.
Okay, well, if you can, I would imagine contacting the society, it's TRD Society that runs the Fall Fair. I'm positive, if you're able to make it in on Saturday, I'm positive they get you in there. I think it's important to engage our youth and stuff like that. And Tyler made some, I wouldn't say promises, but he was updated last year. So if it's budgetary dollars, you can let Tyler know that I mentioned that he could probably afford it, his budget. So I get along with Tyler pretty good. But any other questions from council? All right, well, thank you very much. Your proclamation will be up next.
Thank you.
Okay, proclamations, Canadian National Railway Company Rail Safety Week 2025. Proclamation request for council consideration following the delegation. And at this time, I'll read out the resolution of the proclamation. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 15th to 21st, 2025. Whereas 261 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2024, resulting in 68 avoidable fatalities and 58 avoidable serious injuries. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public railway right-of-ways are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking at and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public/private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, Indigenous communities, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. Whereas CN and Operational Lifesaver have requested Tumbler Ridge Council to adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. All right, moving on to consent agenda. Recommendation, please. Councillor Jewett.
That all items in the September 2nd, 2025 consent agenda be moved for information.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Are there any items council would like to bring forward for discussion? Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move 7.4 for discussion, please.
Seconder? I'll second it. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So we have the official opposition reaching out to us for discussions. I would think we should be meeting with at least the Ministry of Health and Housing, and we should be bringing up our UBCM topics to them. So I'll motion that we ask staff to reach out to arrange meetings with the opposition for health and housing.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Julich. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Julich.
7.7, please.
Discussion, seconder, Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Julich.
They have, TRMBA has asks for 3 different letter of support, and I would like to make a motion that we do a letter of support for all 3 of their asks.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Does the letter of support tie us to financial support?
Go to Ms. Scott, but my understanding is we're just supporting their, my understanding from the motion on the floor would be that we're just supporting their ask for these grant opportunities. Ms. Scott?
That's correct. I would also ask that each of these motions actually be made separately because they need to include those with their grant applications.
Yeah, I was going to ask next. That was my next question. Thank you. So really and truly, in my opinion, this motion was already seconded. Best to defeat it and move on. So call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, I didn't see your hand if you were in favor, but all council and the mayor are opposed. Motion is defeated. Take one motion at a time. Councillor Julich.
That the District of Tumbler Ridge supports the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association in their application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust in the amount of $273,399 for Phase 2 of the Ridge Downhill Trails.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Julich.
That the District of Tumbler Ridge supports the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association in their application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, REDIP, in the amount up to the maximum of $364,249 for Phase 3 of the Ridge Downhill Trails.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Third recommendation, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. That the District of Tumbler Ridge provides letter of support to the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association outlining support for their 2026 build plans and ongoing fundraising efforts for Phases 2 and 3 of the Ridge Downhill Trails.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. Discussion? Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious on the reasoning for this one. The other 2 previously were for specific grant applications. I don't understand the reasoning for this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure the reasoning it. To me, it looks like it's for Phase 2 and Phase 3, which is mentioned in the motions above. Ms. Scott, I didn't reach out to Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association. Was there a reasoning why they needed this third motion?
I think it just as it says in the motion that it would support any other ongoing fundraising efforts.
Yeah, okay. Just, I'm assuming just so they can blanket apply and not have to come back if it's something's time sensitive. Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. So I believe I read or here we go, the total project budget of 1.1 million. So these first two grant applications are roughly about 650,000. So I'm afraid by providing this letter of support for 2026 build plans that we'll be on the hook for $400,000.
There's no monetary amount there, just saying that we support it. That's my read on it, but I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Bertrand. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Yeah, like for myself, this is just providing a letter of support for any potential fundraising opportunities that are upcoming. Saves them the effort of coming in and asking for another letter of support, which I'd be happy to provide at that time or now for anything that pops up. This gives them the flexibility to jump out there and go at it. In here, it doesn't say monetary value to the District of Temple Ridge. That's why I'm in favor. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Any other items, Council, to discuss? Just one thing I wanted to go back to before Councilor Norbury, and it was already up for discussion. That was 7.4 with the opposition. The second page of it sounds like they're doing guest speaking at certain times of the day in certain rooms. Page 91 of that, just so council's aware. There is some that are set an hour long. Wasn't sure if council was aware of it. Just so you know, you can attend those. Those are open if the schedule's open. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. 7.10, District of Temple Chetwynd for discussion, please.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I do recognize Chetwynd's going after the same funding that we're going after, or that's later in our agenda. Either way, I believe emergency services are very important for anybody in our region, and I think they are asking for a letter of support. The time window has passed, but still I'd like to make a resolution to support their application, so for the new fire hall. So I'll make a motion to send a letter of support to District Chetwynd for their grant application.
Seconder, Councilor Julich. Discussion. Councilor Hoffman.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I'm hoping staff can confirm that we aren't directly competing, that like if there's lots of forest fires in the area, we need to share resources, and that we're not conceding something that we would be interested in if we are supporting Chetwynd.
Yeah, I'm understanding when I looked earlier in a report that's later on, it's a fairly substantial amount of money that they're putting in there for applying for the grant. So we're all applying for the same grant, and they'll decide on what communities may get and what communities will get, but is that not true, Ms. Scott?
Yes, and when they're looking at some of the criteria that they're measuring grant applications on, some of them include the degree of regional impact or benefit, the degree to which the project reflects interjurisdictional cooperation. So our letter of support definitely helps their application. And each of our projects, even though we may determine that we want to apply for it, each of the projects would be evaluated based on some of the set criteria individually.
Follow up, you're good. Okay, any other discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councilor Bertrand's opposed, motion carries. Any other items council like to bring forward for discussion? Okay, moving on to new business. Request for funding approval to replace the Town Hall emergency generator. Report dated September 2nd, 2025, from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding request funding approval to replace the Town Hall emergency generator. Recommendations that it'll be one at a time. Councilor Julich.
The council approved the allocation of up to $95,000 from the district's equipment reserve fund for the purchase and installation of a replacement generator for Town Hall, inclusive of applicable taxes and a 30% contingency.
Seconder, Councilor Hoffman. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Second recommendation. Councilor Julich.
That the 2025 to 2029 five-year financial plan be amended by A, increasing capital by $95,000, B, increasing transfers from reserves by $95,000.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. UBCM Strategic Priorities and Fund Application, Tumbler Ridge Fire Hall report dated September 2nd, 2025, from the Director of Protective Services, Fire Chief, regarding UBC Strategic Priorities Fund Application, Tumbler Ridge Fire Hall. Recommendation? Councillor Julik.
The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Norberry. All in favor? Carried. Sorry. All right, discussion? I'm going to make a couple comments, start it off, I guess. I think it's great that we're looking at funding. My biggest concern is where are the other options? At a previous meeting we had with this Appendix A, or 1, I believe it's called, we gave out other topics. We talked about, metal, we talked about why we have a fourth bay, used examples of Beaver Lodge and such like that. To me, it looks like the second appendix, Appendix B, is we remove the fourth bay off because there seemed like there was concerns from some council, majority of council, wanting the cost of a fire hall and why are we building a fourth bay, possibly rent it, possibly give it to search and rescue, possibly have another office space down there, and we're looking at $13 million. We cut the space off, and now we're looking at $11 million. Yes, we can apply for a grant of up to $7 million, not guaranteed to $7 million. But I mean, it's got to be curious, where's our other options? We had a fairly open discussion in some of the things that we were throwing around the table. Beaver Lodge came up. I think I was fairly vocal about that one as I did tour that hall because it was relatively newly built.
I will ask the Director of Protective Services to give council a summary or an update on all of the different options and things that he considered when bringing this back to council.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and council, good evening. So the purpose of this report is just to get council's resolution before the deadline for the UBCM grant. At this point, we're not looking for us to decide on what type of a fire hall we're going to be building with what type of materials we are trying to meet the deadline for the grant. We can get up to $7 million. That is the purpose of this. Once we establish the funding, then we can go out and we can actually get to an RFP process to determine what materials, et cetera, we're going to be using. The two options that I have contained in this report are, one was the original one that you saw back in October or November of last year, which was an $11.7 million. The other was based on the architect's redesign of going with cheaper materials, kind of giving the same feel and look to it. They didn't spend a lot of time on changing the drawings because all of that stuff is just concept designs. These are not exactly what it's going to end up looking like. So we took a look at where efficiency options were. They had to do a significant redesign on the inside to take out the additional bay. That is the biggest loss of the funding, or sorry, the cost reduction method is to reduce that bay that was not going to be used by the Tumbler Ridge Fire Department. So that was redesigned. The hose tower was redesigned. The office space was redesigned. This is all in a much smaller footprint. So between those two things, we need to have some type of an idea of what we're going to go back for the funding application, which is why you have two appendices in there to date for your decision.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Scott. Guess my understanding of it is, when I see the motions as listed as Appendix B or Appendix A, but my understanding, reaching out to our CEO today, is the motion can be that we're applying for the funding. Just want clarity on that. Like, we do not have to have and I think staff, Mrs. Scott's staff had mentioned that, we don't have to have a design to apply for that possible grant, is my understanding.
That's correct. So if council agrees to apply for the Strategic Priorities Fund funding, there are 4 different types of cost estimates that we can provide in our application. There's a Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D. And so without a specific design, we could apply for either a Class C or a Class D. The Class D is a preliminary estimate which, due to little or no site information, indicates the approximate magnitude of the cost of the proposed project based on the client's broad requirements, et cetera. So even without choosing option or Appendix A or Appendix B, we can still apply for the $7 million loosely based on some of those numbers that we have already obtained.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Noxana, then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. That changes my opinion a little bit. Just confirming that if we apply for the $7 million based on numbers, that we could apply for that based on a $7 million build, not a $10 million build. Is that something that we're able to do, or do we have to say we're building 10, but we want 7? Because that's still committing us to $3 million, which in my personal budget is a lot of money, and in this community is a lot of money.
Yeah, my understanding, just listening from Ms. Scott, and she can give us clarity, is, you know, that D or C cost is, to me, it sounded like that's the best option instead of a B or an A cost plan, because then it's there, but I'll just get clarity from Ms. Scott, because are we, I know I probably did that too early, I get in trouble from the chief. Yes, and part of the motion is obviously it's written in there that we're gonna manage the grant and support any cost overrun using capital reserves, but it doesn't mean it has to be capital reserves, but just clarity if you can, Ms. Scott, for council in regards to, you know, how do we apply for the 7 million, and then how do we lock ourselves in if all of a sudden it's a $15 million fire hall?
This grant is different than other grant applications in that we don't have to contribute X amount towards it, where sometimes we have to put in a 30% or we have to put in a 25%. This is 100% funding up to 7 million. So at this point, we would apply for the full 7 million. If we don't spend the full 7 million, then that's great. That's more money left in that pot for somebody else. If the design does come back to council, that, you know, we would potentially need more than 7 million, that would still come back to council at that point to approve or not approve that design.
Follow up? Okay. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I also echo Councillor Noxana's comments. Thanks, Chief, for your explanation, and Ms. Scott as well, in regards to we're not, you know, committing ourselves to, you know, additional $2.7 million, which I think, you know, when people see what they get in trade-off for that 2.7, they'd be pretty happy. But understanding that we can go for this funding, and we're still not tied to something. So I really appreciate that. So it makes, yeah, I'm in support of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'm clear, but I'd rather be clear. Are we saying that if we, it sounds like Appendix B is a preferred option. If we go with Appendix B, that we can still change those plans, but having plans would give us a better application? Is that a fair statement?
Ms. Scott, because my understanding was we wouldn't have to have plans, but Ms. Scott, for clarity?
Is my understanding of the grant application that we don't have to identify Appendix A or Appendix B, that we can apply based on a loose estimate. However, I know that the Director of Protective Services has been looking at this a lot more and talking to a lot more people about this than I do, and maybe can provide some additional information. I'll ask him if he has any other information he can provide council.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, so yes, I think is the answer that we're looking for. So we do need to have a total budget that we're going to be putting in the grant application. So that's why we have Appendix A, Appendix B. If we're shooting for the build of in Appendix B, for example, the $9 million, those are Class C costs, which is cost plus 40%. That's been confirmed by the architect. We need to have some type of a budget. What's the total cost? And we need to have a commitment from council by resolution that if we were to get the full $7 million, that council supports the cost overruns. How is the rest of it going to be financed? And in conversations with the CFO, looking at what we have in capital reserves for buildings, that's where the language from the transfer from capital reserves came from. Doesn't mean that we have to, we just have to commit to somebody's got to pay for it in good faith at this point for the grant application.
Follow up, Councillor Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you, staff. That does help clear up that we are essentially, at least on paper, committing to, at least to my mind, how we're wording it. That said, I think we need to. If we're getting a grant to do this, it's a whole lot better than funding it ourselves. So if we do get 7 million, if we have to cough up a significant amount, it's still, the value is there for me. So I'll actually make the motion.
There's still up for discussion. There's lots of people with their buttons on.
Oh, there's? Sure, I'll wait.
Sorry, didn't want to cut you off, there's a bunch of people. So I got myself, and then Council Norbury, and then Council Julick. And I appreciate the information from staff and from Ms. Scott. But my understanding, and Ms. Scott, maybe I have to clarify, is even if we pick Appendix B, does not mean that's the design we go with. We're setting up budget, is my understanding, and I heard it from staff too, but again, I always use Ms. Scott, and I apologize, but that's the individual that I can direct to. Is as we go through this process, there could be other options that come in that are $7 million or $6.5 million, and that's the option council goes with, and it's fully built by a grant, not any monetary taxation or borrowing. To me, if we're going to build something, and I hear it around the table, lots, use golf course storage, saying, oh, we should find out what the residents want. Well, then, to me, if we're building a fire hall, we should be making sure that we have some resident input. And that's an opportunity. If we're looking at borrowing money, residents get an input. Doesn't mean that we can't support it, but I think there's options there. But Ms. Scott, is that not correct that if we use, and I understand listening from staff, they need to have a budget, and that's why they're given two options here. So they have a total budget, but that budget could change as drawings come forward from staff.
That is my understanding, yes, but again, I'll ask the Director of Protective Services if he has additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Your worship, you're absolutely correct. As part of this process, we'll be to an RFP, we'll be looking at all things, and then future conversations around budget process or through budget deliberations to see what council's wishes are. Like I said, today is just, we're trying to apply for $7 million, understanding that financing, or funding rather, this type of a project is a significant hurdle for us to get over. And it was seen that way during budget deliberations from last year. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury and then Councilor Julick.
Thank you, Mayor Kiyaka. What's the timeline for us using these funds if we are successful in the grant?
Ms. Scott?
I believe that they anticipate that it would be built within 2 years, but again, I'll ask the Director of Protective Services, who I know has been reading this information a lot more closely than I have.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. You're correct. 2 years.
Thank you. Councilor Julick and then Councilor Bertrand.
I just wanted to clarify, this doesn't keep us from looking for other grants either, correct?
No, you're right. Ms. Scott?
Correct.
Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I'm not sure where to start. This is a beautiful picture. It is an absolutely gorgeous concept that would completely stick out in Tumbler Ridge. We haven't even approved any kind of a concept here, and we are going to we're going to motion and resolve that we're going to be committed to $2.5 million if we're successful. I understand the timeline as far as the grant application goes, but we are seriously putting the horse before the cart here. My biggest concern is Chetwynd is applying for the same grant. Chetwynd has double the people that we have, that they serve. If I was in that grant application deciding committee, it would be a no-brainer. Population wins every time, in my opinion. So I'm curious to know if staff has reached out to Chetwynd as far as their plans. Are they planning a $4 million and we're planning an $11 million? And like, are we set up for failure here?
I believe, and Ms. Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's $7.3 million for Chetwynd.
Yeah, so we do have a copy of Chetwynd's plans. They have shared their plans with us. Their budget currently is sitting at $7,567,000, but that is only with a 2.5% contingency, which 2.5% contingency.
Thank you for that. So I understand, and I'll be honest, when I read the agenda, I came in and I asked questions, and, I started doing some of my own legwork, and, I guess being the mayor, you don't have much pull, because when you call some of these organizations, I think I got the runaround. I asked Ms. Scott if she could make a couple contacts for me or calls for me, and she got the same runaround, so now I don't feel so bad. It's a long weekend. I'll be honest, I did the agenda review on Thursday or something, it's a long weekend. I was trying to, because at first I was like, oh man, but hearing from staff in regards to, trying to apply for a grant, I think it's been spelled out fairly clear here that we are not tied to Appendix A or B. It is something that they will need or that they will require to put in for the grant. Then it will go out to an RFP with other options. Maybe these are some of the same similar options that come back. Maybe there's some other different options. So council will still have an opportunity, just because we are successful on a grant of up to $7 million. I mean, let's hope for 7. We can still say no. The money just goes back. We've done that here in Tumble before when we haven't spent something because of, not staffing, but, contractors holding things up that we couldn't move forward, so we end up losing a grant. One of them was the sidewalks. We lost a grant for that. We ended up getting another grant, which was great on staff. They worked really hard to get that grant for that sidewalk. But so I see that. So, at first I had a really tough time, trying to understand it. But, I think staff has really answered some of the valuable questions answered by council on, they need to put this forward so they have plans there for the grant. And I think, Councillor Bertrand, I don't know if we base it off population. I think they look at it as a whole, and I think our job as elected officials is to make sure we're reaching out to the right channels to advocate for our grant. Don't get me wrong, I support Chetwynd. I mean, we're all in the Peace region, but our job as elected officials is to say, hey, listen, it's our turn. It's our turn for the grant. It's our turn. We need it. This is why. We don't have the PRRD going to pay for 55% of it or whatever it is, right? So I think it's really important that we move forward in regards to the grant. If it's denied, obviously we're back to square one. And I don't think staff, and Councillor Gill, like you mentioned it, this doesn't prevent staff from looking at other grants that will offset an overcost if it was to stay at the same budget. Or if we're denied this grant, that it doesn't have staff still work at other grants. I think it's really important that, one, we build a hall that is the right fit for Tumbler Ridge with the right cost value, that meets the needs of staffing. It meets the needs of the staff and all the litigation on it and the value of it, without taxing our residents to have to pay for it. So if we can get some grants, I think it really helps offset it. So hope I change your mind. Councillor Jilek.
Yeah, and to Councillor Bertrand's point, I think the part for me where I don't have any concerns with this at all is that we need a hall. I don't think that anybody's arguing that point. We've been pushing this hall away for 10 to 15 years, whether it was pieces of renovation, whether it was any of those things. This isn't something that's new, the need for something within the community. So we have the 2 years, and because I believe that we've been reassured that this isn't tying us into anything other than to apply for the grant, I'm actually ready to make a recommendation if, no, and Mayor Calk's telling me to, but that's how sure I am of it, because I just feel staff has definitely done all the work that they need to do here, and we're up against it. I think that we can't just keep putting this off, building a new hall.
Sorry, and I appreciate you waiting. I mean, I would have taken it, but hopefully nobody was seconded. Ms. Scott, is it better off to talk about D-cost or C-costing within the motion?
Actually, that's a question I again will defer to the Director of Protective Services, who will be working on the application, if it matters if we're talking about the C-class or the D-class.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Your worship, it doesn't need to be contained within the resolution itself. It's part of the application. We have to define what classification, the metrics that they were based on, which the architects have provided us, and then how it's going to be funded.
Okay, thank you. I am going to beat council because I'm going to put the motion on the floor. The council supports the application to the UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund for the proposed firewall replacement as listed as Appendix B, with the willingness to provide overall grant management and support any cost overruns utilizing taxation or borrowing. Seconder. Councillor Norbury. Discussion. Councillor Julik.
I feel like you did that because you knew I was going to do Appendix A. I am in favor of Appendix A. For me, I think if we go in with a higher cost with the reasoning behind that, we would be better suited. So I'll be voting against it because I want Appendix A, but I'm just glad that we'll get a grant application out there.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm fully supportive of this. I think having the opportunity for getting a 7 million grant towards something that is very much needed, with the flexibility to back out, with the flexibility to change the plans, is essentially ideal. If the time comes, I think, as has been stated here, trying to keep the cost of the project within the limits of the grant, assuming that it is in that range, is there. So if we need this, this is an opportunity to push forward with it without the commitment going forward. So very much in favor. To Councillor Julich, I don't think going bigger is better on this one, especially if we have trouble justifying a fourth bay for use for our department. I think our best bet is to put a need in justified to the process and perhaps a reminder, I'll leave it to the applier, that we share resources up here. When there's a forest fire, our guys go out there and their guys come out here. And we saw that before and we'll see it again. So I'm hoping that reminds them that perhaps more than one town in the area being invested in is not a bad idea anyways. So on we go.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Julich.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. I'm in support of the resolution on the floor. When we look at those Class D, estimates, if we were, if Chetwynd applied for the same amount with a Class D estimate of 40%, that'd put them at $10.5 million. So, we can go to them saying we're going to come in with a better value because we're only going for 9.7. So, but I would concur with Councillor Hoffman. We got to go. The worst decision is indecision. Last time we had this discussion, I recognized that, we asked staff to come back and look at something else, and they did. This is a reduction. This is a starting point, so great job, staff, for bringing us back something different. I look forward to having that conversation in the future when we look at more discussions, but at this point in time, we need to, get on with it or get off the pot, and I'm ready to get on with it, so thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Julich.
To Councillor Hoffman's point, and I think I just feel the need to clarify this because I am going to be voting against it, not because I'm against going for the grant, but the reason that I'm in support of the fourth bay is we have had this fire hall for 40 years. I see in 40 years growth. I know that some of the reasons that we in town receive discounts or exceptions within our insurance is because of the equipment that the hall has or the District of Tumbler Ridge carries. I see the possibility of some of that changing in 40 years. I see that building it now makes more sense than building it later. It's not like we have an excessive amount of space to park equipment, whether it be fire hall or town hall equipment. So for me, that's one of the things. And the other part is the design guideline bylaw. Some of the reason that we came in at a higher cost is because we have a bylaw that tells us that we need to. So I understand that there's some changes that could be made there. And in fact, I've had some conversations with citizens within the community about some ways to move around that. But for me, the reason that I want to go with the higher cost is that it gives us more room to play around because we haven't really said anything but that we wanted it for less money. And I don't know that less money is the way to go as building costs continue to go high. So I'm not voting against this because of the unwillingness to ask for a grant. It's because I think that we need to explore what we build a little bit more.
Thank you for that. Ms. Scott, could we just get clarity when we talk about 3 bays, it's not 1 truck per bay. Some of those bays will be able to house 2 trucks, is my understanding, on the size of the bay length.
That is my understanding as well, but again, I will ask the Director of Protective Services to provide that clarification.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Your worship, to the councilor's question, yes, they are drive-through bays. So they, in any Appendix A or Appendix B, will be able to house multiple apparatus in each bay.
Thank you. So the reason I put that on there is because at this point, we have enough room for 3 units inside our fire hall today that was built 40 years ago. This, to me, to prescribe, and I understand a fourth bay, but there's no need for it. I mean, staff even said maybe possibly going for search and rescue, and then they're renting office space out. This other hall that has 3 bays could possibly house up to 6 different fire vehicles. Depends on length. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, and I think we could sit here and debate it all day long.
Probably.
Yeah, and I disagree with you. I appreciate your point, and I still disagree with you. And so, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Sounds good to me. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Julik's opposed. Motion carries. Move on 9.3, maximum setback emission in the zoning bylaw number 747, 2025. Report dated September 2nd, 2025 from the Director of Protective Services, Fire Chief, regarding maximum setback emission in the zoning bylaw number 747, 2025. Council's discussion. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. Sorry, I'm scrambling to get to it. That's a small, there we go. The council receives this report for discussion. Thanks.
Discussion?
Yep.
Seconder? Councillor Dussault, all in favor for discussion? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. I want to throw the recommendation on the floor. Yeah. Sorry about the discussion, for discussion, sorry. That council directs staff to prepare an amendment to zoning bylaw number 747, 2025 in order to reestablish the maximum setback distance for a principal building in relation to the front parcel line of a property.
Seconder on the alternative, Councillor Norbury, or Councillor Bertrand, sorry. Discussion. Oops. Ms. Scott? Yeah, pretty big bylaw that we went through there, the zoning bylaw. Oops, not only by maybe staff, but also council, maybe not picking this up. So good catch. I think the catch came forward as a resident came forward for a variance that no longer needs a variance, is my understanding, Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, my understanding on that too is staff just told them to go ahead and start building the fence, even though they were going to actually come in and apply for the variance to actually try to follow the previous bylaw. You know, get on the resident to try and do it that way. Do we know how it was removed? Because it was not removed previously in the draft. I went back, I have my draft. It's still in my draft. When I found this out, I was away. So I had to wait till I get home and be able to pull my paperwork up. It was still in our draft. So like, have we reached out to the contractor to ask them, I don't know, oops, like how did that happen?
Yes, we've reached out to the contractor, trying to have conversations when it was removed, why it was removed. Ultimately, it's not there and needs to get put back in.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. 9.4, next schedule, let's talk topics and date selection. Report dated September 2nd, 2025 from the executive assistant to the CAO, mayor and council. The next schedule, let's talk topic and date selection. Recommendation, Councillor Julik.
The council received this report for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Julik. I'm still trying to find
I think that there's lots of different things that we could talk about. I think health is going to be a big one. I also think that I sometimes wonder, like I understand the reasoning and possibly our returning members of council could let me know why we don't open it up to maybe, and I think we do in the question period. Like I think for me, health continues to be an issue. And then I think the other thing for me is fee-for-service and not-for-profit questions and how that works and the new dates and what that looks like and what the community, you know, like if they think we need to spend more money, less money, that kind of thing. Those are some things to start with for me. And so far as the date, October works best for me, and I think that's one of the months we've had them before.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it needs to be health. That is a very pressing matter. I think information needs to be conveyed, how things should be done needs to be conveyed, and I think the sooner the better. So that's, and I don't have any issue of adding more agenda items that if we want to bring forward more information, but I think the town's voice needs to be heard on that particular topic ASAP. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Jilek.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the dates. I mean, last year's Let's Talk seems like a pretty good time to me, end of October. When it comes to topics, health, obviously, I think we should be inviting Northern Health to that one. Wildfire is still a key point in people's minds. I think it's a good idea to tell them how great the prescribed burn went around town, like no issues. I'm aware of. It had no issues. It was a resounding success, and our future efforts there. And, you know, I appreciate how these things are run. Like, we put on the agenda that we want, but it really comes down to what happens after those agenda items are done. We just open it up, and people throw out the ideas. If there's pressing issues, they'll bring it up at that point, and then we could sort of build it into the future Let's Talks, would be my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Jilek.
I'm just glancing back at my agenda here, and I see that staff would like to note that we haven't had a discussion or survey of changing the speed limits on Highway 52 and 29. I'd be happy to add those as well, because then I wondered if that was and possibly even the roller coaster ride that we all go on. And I know that you've mentioned that it's I can't ever remember the technical term, but that there's some studies that have to happen there, but even just getting that information back out to the community isn't a bad thing.
Thank you. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we could talk about a new fire hall. I think we do need to discuss healthcare, but I really appreciated Northern Health being there last time to answer questions and concerns. I think they need to have their own open house in regards to their service levels. But it would be a good opportunity to ask the residents. And there was one other, I'll come back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think we also need to talk about BC Housing as well, and whatever items may come up at UBCM as well that we might want to bring back to Let's Talk. We might have some new information. There might be other things as well.
Yeah. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just remembering the last one. We had some really good suggestions from residents. I'm sure they were documented. I'm just wondering if we have followed up on any of those. I remember one of them being emergency preparedness for
Cell phone edge,
cell phone coverage, yes.
Wi-Fi or internet. Yeah, I think like that's in the report too about the questions and the answers. I appreciate that because I had to excuse myself at the last Let's Talk in an emergency there, and so it was good to read through those. But yeah, I think it's we should bring some of those points back, and one of them would be in regards to again losing cell and Wi-Fi, what the backup plan is for the district. I know the district, as a corporation, started doing the plans and bringing in Starlink. What is that? I know talking with staff, they were trying to get the information, I'd say from TELUS and BC Wildfire Service and what that timeline looked like because of the poles being taken out. They were looking at bringing in the provincial one. There's a provincial one. I can't remember what they call it, but it's more or less a trailer that hooks up. I'm going to say it's similar to Starlink. So there was talk about that. So I know staff is working on it, but I think that can be, maybe that information can be shared to council. And again, Let's Talks for us to answer the questions and not to put staff out there. But we can definitely get that information on what the protocol was. Again, I was well aware they were already working on something for that. Does anybody, I think, I'll be honest, I think we set the date. Some of the topics, I think Councillor Dussault is correct. I think we got to wait for after UBCM to see maybe some of the hits we get or don't get that we can update our residents on. Normally we do it on a Wednesday. I'm not sure what people's schedules are like for October 22nd or 29th is what I was thinking. 22nd is 2 days after a council meeting. Any issues, just put up your hand and I'll put the motion out there. Issue with the date?
22nd. I can't. 22nd, I have another meeting, and it would be hit and miss. If we had it at 7, it wouldn't be a big deal. If we had it at 5, I might be a little cutting it closer, but, so I can do both, just depending on time.
Okay, 29th? Any issues with the 29th for anybody? Okay. 6 PM work for everybody? Okay, put a motion on the floor that we select October 29th at 6 PM for Let's Talk. Seconder? Council Norbury, discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. So I do believe there's a couple items that can be discussed. Again, I don't, like, I won't say so much Highway 29, but I have been definitely in conversations with the regional Modi office about increasing the speed limit on Highway 52 to 100 kilometers an hour. I did that last year, and then the promise to Modi was to engage our residents, because that's where it came from. And I didn't do that. So this year, I think we should have it on Let's Talk, just talk to see what people think. It's not about having public make a decision there. I think, you know, asking people to get back to our CAO or even mayor and council their opinions. Worst thing we can do is have Modi go in and look at doing that, and then it comes back that it wasn't well supported. So I don't blame them. I think it's something, I've heard it from multiple people. I mean, we actually have a highway that's better than some of the highways on the island, and they're 100 kilometers an hour. I mean, I don't think we should be doing that through the roller coasters, but I think it's 60, so I would slow down to 60 if you see stock trucks. Yeah, there you go. And the other thing, and I don't think, again, the speed limit, I think that's something we got to talk about, because it was something that was brought forward and I've been talking to Modi about. When we talk about in regards to the roller coasters, I mean, we call it everything really pretty much, the whip-de-doos, whatever you want to call them. You know, I've asked Modi, Ms. Scott was there, we've asked Modi some way to get out and communicate with residents and that in regards to Highway 52 and what they're doing, what they've heard. Do I think that's our job? I talk about it. I talk about it after for councillors' business and what I've been working on, and I've brought it up there in regards to that. You know, they were doing the geotechnical, and they have this. But I think it's up to them to say that, hey, listen, we've heard you loud and clear as British Columbians. We have an issue there. Right now we're doing geotechnical. Right now we're doing this. Right now we have a 500-meter slide that is still sliding. Well, probably not going to get fixed right away, so maybe tell us that. So I think it's their job, and I think I'll just circulate back to them. I think they need to communicate to the residents of Tunbridge, but all the people that travel that highway, that they've heard it, they're working on it, they don't have a full plan yet. We'll know more probably in about January, February of 2026, but right now there is budget dollars put in for asphalt on Highway 52. Don't know where. Definitely not the whip-de-doos, no roller coasters, that's not happening. So where it is along the highway, but they won't know until the final budget is complete, because it could be removed and moved somewhere else. So again, I think speed limit's important, but I think when we talk about the other stuff, I think it's some of these other organizations have to do their due diligence as well and communicate with the British Columbians that they're responsible for. Not that we can't update that we've been engaging with some of these organizations, like with Modi, the regional office and such. You know, same thing with healthcare. You know, I don't think it's wrong to have Northern Health there, but maybe it's time Northern Health does their own. You know, it seems to be when I look back here, council time was spent, probably 55 minutes of it was spent listening about Northern Health questions, which is important to our elected officials, don't take me wrong. I'll have Northern Health every time I get an opportunity to. But maybe it's time that they actually come up and engage properly. Instead of a let's talk, maybe they can do a better job. But again, I think if we want health there, we can put the request in. We have a date selected. I know last year, or the last one that they did attend, at first staff received a denial. They were not going to attend until myself and Councillor Knoxon and Councillor Dussault hammered them in Prince Rupert. And I want to know why Northern Health was not going to attend Let's Talk, and they were unaware of it. So Cheryl made it happen. So I think those are important. BC Housing, same thing. I think it's important for an update. And I think staff will, you know, one will have some updates from UBCM when it comes to BC Housing, but there may be some updates as staff's working, and staff has not stopped working with BC Housing, just so everybody's aware. Not always are we told there's meetings and they're having conversations and looking at different things, of maybe things that were told to council at UBCM, this is what I was going to do, and still haven't done it. So staff is still following up on those, and I'm well aware of that. All right, Counselor Hoffman, talked long enough.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, you just triggered something in me there. With the speed limit, as I understand it, the ambulances are limited based on the posted speed limit. I think part of the consideration, if we want to bring it up, is maximizing sections where that is safe to go at just essentially as fast as possible. So we can have that, try to get it under an hour from here to there. But just a thought.
I'd have to do the research again. I have the research at home as I'm been in the field for emergency service a long time with fire department and ambulance services. Speeding doesn't save you any time. You can do 120 kilometers an hour on Highway 97 to Prince George, and I'll probably beat you by about 6 minutes. I think is what it's a very low ratio compared to inside a city where there's lights. So like you really don't save a bunch of time speeding. I know we all think we do. It feels good that you're speeding, but you don't really save a bunch of time. It's just, I asked for that because there was tons of residents that hammered me when I first was elected as a mayor about the speed limit. That's the only reason. 10 kilometers doesn't make a big difference. And yes, BCM has a policy of nothing over 25 over the posted speed limit, if safe to do so. Okay, anything else that we can give staff? Sounds like talk about BC Housing, possible speed increase on Highway 52, healthcare, which we might be able to do our own by then. Yeah, the emergency preparedness question, I think staff would be able to maybe just get us the information, Ms. Scott, in regards to that, and we can talk about it. And then we can add more at the first meeting in October, if that works for staff. Ms. Scott?
That's a lot of topics, but yes, if you need to add more, you certainly can, yes.
Oh, they're all night. I heard there's chicken wings this year. Okay. So we'll just make sure staff brings Let's Talk topic back into October, please. Moving on to block ice users rate, report dated September 2nd, 2025 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding block ice user rates. Recommendation, please. Councillor Julik.
That the block ice user rates for Tumbler Ridge Minor Hockey be set at $4,000.
Hang on a second. No, can't make a motion. Not like that. Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I need to declare conflict as I sit on the board of the Tumbler Ridge Figure Skating Club.
Thanks. That's the only reason. I thought you were going to go for discussion.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason. She already pre-told me she had to excuse herself. Councillor Julik.
That the block ice user rates for Tumbler Ridge Minor Hockey be set at $4,000 per team, and the block ice user rate for the Tumbler Ridge Figure Skating Club be set at $5,000 for the 2025-2026 season.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really confused by the differences in price. I was a very frequent user of the arena, and from what I understood, as being part of minor hockey's board and all of that, minor hockey uses the ice a lot more than figure skating, but yet they have a lower price. I don't understand where the prices have come from. Back when I was on the board, minor hockey paid about $21,000 in ice fees. I think the numbers should be the other way around, in my opinion. I don't understand the difference and why minor hockey is getting lower rate than figure skating.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hoffman and then Councillor Julik.
I was confused about the rate differential as well. That was a question of mine. And also, I don't see anything in cost changes. Like, is the cost to maintain the ice the same as it was 6-7 years ago? Or what sort of increases have we seen over the years? I get that we're talking about looking at it next year, but yeah, I'd like some clarity on why the numbers, why 4 and why 5,000 for each of these organizations.
Ms. Scott? So cost increase, which, I mean, obviously there's cost increase, and then just what the costing is.
Off the top of my, I don't have what the increase for operating costs are. I also can't necessarily talk about where the $4,000, $5,000 came from. That was in a report to council in 2019. I don't know if it fully explains where those came from. We can look at that closer. But just for clarification, minor hockey for the 2025-2026 season will pay $24,000.
Thank you. Counselor Julick and then myself.
So the reason I've put the motion on the floor is because the minor hockey and figure skating club have already filled up their registrations. And so if we were to increase the costs on them this year, they would not have had the opportunity to do the number crunching for themselves, and we'd be putting them behind the 8 ball for sure in a big way. I absolutely am in favor of the next recommendation as well. And from what I took away from the report was minor hockey definitely uses the ice more. I would say that they support more skaters. And so I think because Tumbler Ridge Figure Skating Club is one entity, so they pay the $5,000 for the entirety of the year, which I could see followed, versus the $4,000 per 6 teams per month, versus like they pay monthly versus the figure skating club paying for the season is what I'm understanding from the fall, like the numbers that are supplied here. Yeah, because they don't pay $5,000 per month, the figure skating club, they just pay that $5,000 per season. And I see that they asked for a fee waiver for the carnival and stuff like that. So I'd be interested in that coming back to the fee, so that we can have a more robust discussion in the fees and charges bylaw and this policy again. I think that that's good. And hopefully when we do that we have minor hockey and figure skating club in on the conversations, so we can figure out where their pressure points are as well. So that's why I'm in support of the motion, just to get them through this season for sure.
Thank you. A couple comments I'll make is, and I understand where Councilor Bertrand was coming from, but, I look at the concept from this council and some of the directions from this council was children and youth. And to me, when we see 4,000 per team and then the 5,000 for the Tumbler's Figure Skating Association, and to increase, which I would never have supported an increase in 2025, 2026 season, as their budgets have already done, they've already started registration. To me, that, we could end up bankrupting an organization because we decide to increase in the middle of the season or in the middle of their season for sure. When I look at this, I reached out. Some people reached out to me. Sometimes I reached out to them. But we all sat here. COVID. How many people came for a refund for minor hockey? Does anybody remember? Does anybody remember minor hockey approaching the district to refund money? I don't. What about when we had the, last year we had to shut down the community center and we had to cancel a tournament due to health code? There was no refunds given. So my thing is here is I'm here for the children and the youth. Don't get me wrong, that's the family of Tumbler Ridge, and I'm definitely in support of the motion. I think if we're talking about an increase in 2026, 2027 season, what does that look like? What are we looking to get? Are we trying to increase so much that we, become that we're trying to become revenue neutral in a community center? That's why we have a community center. It's for the community. To me, it's not about revenue neutral in my eyes. I just want to make that clear. I think a lot of this came forward from staff because it was a motion that was missed. The process went through from a previous CAO, but the motion was never added into the proper channel. That's why it came forward to get added in there, because it wasn't added in there. I think the concept of the block bookings when it came to council, I was on council at the time, it was because we had so much unused ice. Minor hockey had, I'm not sure how many teams back then, I apologize, it was 2019. But there's so much unused ice. So to me, this blocked icing, what it does is here, so they're paying, so minor hockey pays by team. They have 6 teams here at $4,000 per team. If there's a weekend that's open, they can actually schedule another tournament. They can schedule provincials if that weekend's open and not pay for it. Our ice is actually being used. So my thing is that we still have to freeze it. It costs us, it doesn't matter if there's any skaters on the ice or no skaters on the ice. It's the same cost to freeze the ice surface. Sure, I guess flooding, but we already have staff there. So really and truly, I don't see the cost increase because we already got staff in the rink because they have to do other testing. They take care of the pool, they do the sampling, they have to go and check on the compressor units. There's no actual increase in cost, because we have staff sitting there. I shouldn't say sitting there. We have staff there doing their other part of their jobs. So they may have to flood the ice. So I'd be very curious if somebody puts second motion on what we're looking for in regards to an increase in the 2026, 2027. You know, are we looking at increasing 5%, 8%, 10%, 50%? Like, what's the thought process? I believe in 2019, the understanding was that it was a block rate with increases. I believe that's how it was proposed to council, that they would be looking at it year after year after year, not September 1st, or September 2nd, I guess, sorry. But I think we need to be ahead of it. We need to make sure that decision is made in January, so organizations, if we do increase it, have an opportunity to say that's, you know, it's too much for us. You know, I did hear from some people from minor hockey. I mean, they know it. They got a good rate here in Tumble Ridge, but what that does, it offsets how much you have to pay for your child to play hockey in Tumble Ridge, which is a benefit for some of our children and youth that all people can afford to play minor hockey. Maybe that doesn't happen in other cities, and I think it's really, really important to see that. So I'll be supporting the motion on the floor. I'd be very curious from staff side if they're looking for an increase in 2026, 2027 season, so which is not 25, 2026 season. Are we looking for an increase? And if we are, do we have a percentage that we're looking at, or is there a thought process? Or like, I understand that we need to get it in the fees and charges thing because it's not there, but are we looking at some way how this was set up to do an increase? Are we looking at that at all?
I don't know if we're even necessarily looking for an increase. Maybe it's a decrease. Maybe it's what council feels should be the correct amount that's charged to these organizations. Yes, our operational costs have increased. Maybe that means that we do increase fees. But in considering the support for these youth organizations, maybe it's a decrease. Maybe it does stay the same. But just to have that conversation and so that the transparency to the citizens of Tumble Ridge that, yes, we support this way, or just so that everybody is aware, I think, of some of the benefits the district does help provide to the youth in the community.
Appreciate that. I think that's very good. And just before I move on to Councillor Norbury, the other comment I'll mention that was brought up in regards to the fee waiver for the carnival. I mean, that's not for ice. It's curtains and labor and stuff like that that they apply for, which, again, I think it's great that we are able to support that. I believe, you know, maybe minor hockey doesn't have to apply for fee waivers for other things, but I think, you know, I attend the rink a lot. I think it's really important to be down at the rink with the youth and the children and watch them. I mean, I didn't make it down this week here for the camp, but I think it's important to be down there. And I mean, you always see the staff helping everybody out. So I think it's really important in our community. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I had a lot of same arguments, discussion points, excuse me, as you did. So save me some time there. Some of the things that I think about, so I'm in support of the motion now because I want to see these organizations continue with a set rate. I'm not really in favor of looking to try and get more funding out of these organizations because I think, from my perspective, we're not about generating revenue from these organizations or clubs. We want to support volunteer-run organizations to provide the best services that we can in our community. And we're getting a heck of a bargain by having these organizations take on such a monumental task as operating a minor hockey season for us. You know, trips out to Fort Nelson, getting out there, which would increase, if we increase costs on the ice usage, we're adding more burden onto those families that are already paying a large amount just to participate in a Canadian pastime. When I took a course on the Hockey Hall of Fame, and one of the parts that we talked about was the average cost that a hockey family has to pay per year. It's $5,000 to $10,000 for every single family. It's a national average. For gear, for travel costs, for ice time, and then we're talking about potentially increasing that burden on families. That's a tough one for me. I'm not in it for the money. Our community is looking for sports activities, youth activities, and these people sacrifice their time, energy, frustrations to provide that. And when we go in and we try and upset that delicate ecosystem of volunteerism in our community, we could lose it very fast. I think we need to approach this, as always, with a place of appreciation. The best way we can show appreciation is remove barriers, and that's one of those barriers is costs. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Bertrand and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. No, sorry, I misread that. I'm definitely not in favor of increasing the costs at all. I think the minor hockey one is a little bit high, actually. So I am not in support of this motion.
Want to make an amendment?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to make an amendment that we change the Tumble Ridge minor hockey rate to $3,000 per team.
Seconder on the amendment? Sorry, I'm just gonna try and do the numbers on the bottom of my page here. Okay, is there a seconder on the amendment? I'll second the amendment. Discussion on the amendment? Councillor Julik?
I think that to do a decrease right now without having a lot of information in front of us, this has been a rate since 2019. I'm absolutely in favor of supporting our youth. This isn't a new number, $4,000 per team. It's been 6 years now, 6 seasons. We've not had them come and ask us for a decrease. I think that we need to be mindful before budget season, what we're looking at. I don't have any numbers in front of me to see what we're absorbing for costs. I think, I just can't support the motion on the floor simply because I don't have enough information in front of me. I'm absolutely okay to keep the rate as is with the look at reviewing it, because maybe we can lower it for next year as Ms. Scott has indicated. Maybe we can give them a refund. But in order to vote to change it for the lower, I would need to see some more costs in front of me just to see what we're looking at.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Councillor Hoffman?
General point, I don't know why the numbers are what they are right now, and now we're going to change them in the other direction. I have no problem. We can make the argument next year when I have the numbers in front of me. Somebody might want to say, let's do 0. And I will consider it based on the information in front of me, not on sentiment. I think the fact that it stayed the same for 6 years now, we are discounting every year that we don't increase the number. We are slowly driving down the number. And I appreciate Ms. Scott for saying what she did, because it's exactly what I was thinking. Maybe it's fair if it's 3,000 for one organization and 4,000 for the other. Maybe it's fair if it's 3,000 across every group, however we decide to break it down. I simply don't know. I appreciate the number breakdown, but the number breakdown is an analysis of what it would cost compared to something else, not what it actually costs us, which is what I'm missing here. I appreciate the point that we put money into the community center for a whole bunch of activities, for a whole bunch of people. Love it. Have no problem with that being a budget line, that the community center costs the town money each year. That's what it's there for, to engage with the community, to give these facilities, to make us better than we would have been if we didn't have it. And that's what this is very much included as well. But without more information, I cannot support the amendment, but I am very much in support of the general motion that is in front of us. So I will stop there.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I can say we have to approach the delicate ecosystem of cost barriers and not support the motion. So you got me, Councillor Bertrand.
Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you. Just to give a little bit more background. So I remember being president of minor hockey many years ago. This block fee rate was put in 2019, but prior to that, they paid per hourly at a discounted rate. Prime time rate was $110 an hour, roughly, which the old timers paid. Minor hockey paid $50 an hour. So it was discounted significantly, about more than 50%. But the block system came into be because of the unused ice time, and so this was used and these numbers were set so that minor hockey and figure skating can book unused ice time for extra practices, extra games, tournaments, provincials, whatever it might be. So by making this decrease, I think, number one, we're making it more affordable for our families, but also we're giving a decrease in overall ice time cost compared to 6 years ago. So that's the reasoning for that. We are never going to cost recover the community center. The community center costs us $3.5 million to operate a year. We are not going to collect that from hockey or figure skating. So that's the reason for that.
Thank you. Any more discussion on the amendment? Just make a couple comments. I second it. I believe I tried to make sure that the amendment, at least we can debate it. I think without the information and the numbers in front of me, I don't get me wrong, I support minor hockey and the Figure Skating Association and other organizations in our community. But normally we have that information in front of us to be able to make a clear decision and why I'm making that decision. So I can't support the amendment on that. I think we have an opportunity in 2026 to have that discussion, get some more information. Like when I look at the report in 2019 and minor hockey used 420 hours and they would have paid $21,525, but actually were only charged $20,000. It doesn't talk anywhere in there, and maybe staff will be able to have that more thorough in a report. How much extra ice did they use? Right? So like we understand that the ice that they were, to me, I'm wondering if that's because of the amount of teams they had, or is that the full ice they used? Because I know when we had provincials, that wasn't charged out of ice. It was because of the block thing, and I think that's where it worked. And it actually offset the, really, if you offset all those extra hours and put it into your blocked hours that you think you're going to use, it actually really, you'd be surprised that it doesn't work out. It works out even cheaper. And that, until I have that information, I have a hard time supporting the amendment. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? I'm going to call the question on the motion. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Councillor Dussault, Councillor Juliak, Councillor Hoffman, and Mayor Calker opposed. The amendment is defeated. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? The motion on the floor is that block ice user rates for Tunbridge Minor Hockey be set at $4,000 per team, and the block ice user rate for the Tunbridge Figure Skating Club be set at $5,000 for the 2025-2026 season. Any other discussion? Call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Bertrand's opposed. Motion carries. Is there anything else in regards to this? Yes, Councillor Juliak, thank you.
That the block user rates be reviewed for the 26-27 season and be added to the fees and charges bylaw as originally intended.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion, Councillor Bertrand.
Just concerned about the timeline of that review, just to ensure that we have something in place before September.
Yeah. Ms. Scott, can we put I'm not a big fan of that, and I've always promised you I'd never set you to a time schedule. But would it be appropriate to state that this has to be decided by February? Would that be appropriate every year? Because it's not just going to be the 1 year, it's going to be, again, it's going to be in 2027, 2028, that it's brought forward in front of council by the last meeting of February. Would that be appropriate?
The fees and charges bylaw generally is reviewed and brought to council in the fall. So we'd be making a decision in the fall for the next year. So for
Okay.
example, you might make a decision in November 25 for the 2026-2027 year.
Okay, so no need, and we're gonna see that in November, or somewhere in that timeline.
There is, the fees and charges bylaw is going to be coming to council shortly for consideration. So we will add this $4,000 and $5,000 amount to it, and then council can consider that when we adopt when we bring that bylaw for council's consideration.
Perfect, thank you very much. Councillor Hoffman.
Mayor, with that timeline, I'm a little concerned on the information that we'll have with it. I would really like to see usage rates. Like if they're using earlier ice times that generally wouldn't have been filled, I have no problem discounting that further, if you will, on how we are doing our fees and structures. But I think we should have the information, including the costing information. As I understand, it's part of the process, but just to know that I could say to somebody, yes, we're subsidizing junior hockey to this amount, and we're subsidizing figure skating to this amount, and I support that. or not, just to have the information. So I'm not sure if that's going to be reasonable for the fees and services. And I have actually a question. Can we set like timelines for these sorts of things? Like, I know it would be part of fees and structures, and that's going to be dealt with annually, but could we as a council say we want to set it for 4 years or whatever? Or is that just not going to fit with how the fee structure works?
Yeah, I think we can have a conversation when that comes forward.
Okay.
And then same if, listening to you, Councillor Hoffman, when it comes forward, I think you got to give staff a fair shake at it. And if there's certain things that we need more information on, we can, again, indulge into that and get that back at the next meeting. I think that's a fair opportunity for council. Any other discussion in regards to the motion on the floor? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Can you grab Councillor Noxana, please? Just wait till I read it. I'll read it first. I'm going to put the motion on the floor. Okay, moving on to 2025 permissive tax exemption application. Report dated September 2nd, 2025 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding the 2025 permissive tax exemption application. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. I need to declare a conflict of interest as I work for the Geopark. Thanks.
Take a recommendation, Councillor Julik.
That council approves the permissive tax exemption applications for the Tumbler Ridge UNESCO Global Geopark, Wolverine Nordic and Mountain Society, and South Peace Community Resources Society at 100% for the remaining 2026-2027 period.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion, Councillor Julik.
I'm almost like, so where are we with permissive tax exemptions? And what does that look like overall when we start talking about, what does that look like at our overall tax base? I think for me, I still feel like I'm a little unsure. Because great organizations, I'm assuming, oh, there it is. I missed it when I first read it over. So, the disc golf course, I get that that's a huge space, and the office location, Geo-Interpretive Center. I guess I'm still curious as to, is there a maximum that we've ever set? Is that something that you've seen in your past, Mayor Kakauka? Is this pretty standard through communities, that kind of thing? Just for curiosity's sake.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I can't speak for other communities. Other communities, do different things when it comes to maybe some of these organizations. Tumbler Ridge is led the path, I guess, or had their own thoughts in regards to supporting their non-for-profit and volunteer organizations. Has there been a limit set? No. As people apply, if they meet the criteria, staff goes through the application process and it meets the criteria, then it comes in front of council to debate it and either approve the permissive tax exemption for those organizations or denies them. It's up to the elected. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Can somebody grab Council Norbury, please? Or not. Okay, scheduling meetings, just so everybody's aware, we've added one meeting in October, which is October 29th at 6 p.m. for Let's Talk. Anything else from council? Just on September 16th, it says a special meeting. It's actually going to be a workshop for council, not a special meeting, it's a workshop. Councillor Julik.
Is that something I can attend by Zoom?
Ms. Scott.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Anything else from council in regards to scheduling meetings? Just want to thank staff for having the calendar and the events calendar all in the same calendar. A lot easier on my eyeballs. It's hard to flip back and forth, so I appreciate it. Just for all council members, it's the Hope Truck Celebration. Coming back from UBCM on the Friday, possibly, if most people have booked their flights. And then 27th is the Hope Truck in Soto First Nations Culture Center. Okay, any notice of motions? Okay, golf course assessment management, golf course asset management assessment at the August 5th, 2025 regular council meeting. Councilor Bertrand brought the following notice of motion forward. Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to move that council directs staff to prepare a comprehensive asset management assessment of the golf course, including its grounds and equipment.
Seconder. Councilor Hoffman, discussion. Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring this forward last meeting just to get it in front of council because I've spent a lot of time down there this summer, as I have for quite a few years, and I've noticed some areas that need investment. It is 30-plus years old, just like all of our other infrastructure, and it is falling apart in some areas. So there is some need for investment in there, or down there, sorry. And I thought by bringing forward an asset management assessment and plan, we can really start to plan out some of these long-term investments. And just to note as well, the golf course is a revenue maker for the district now. It never was. Last year was the first year that it started to make money. So it's a good time to invest as well.
Thank you. I got myself and Councilor Norbury. Appreciate the notice of motion and the recommendation, Councilor Bertrand. It helps staff, but just so you're aware, and I mean, it'll help anyways, it'll get forward. But staff's been working on this, so, you know, I'm not saying it'll come quick, but I know staff has been working over this with the last couple of months. They'd noticed, they'd come forward, you know, there were some missteps there, so I understand why you brought it forward. I think, you know, I heard from a lot of golfers were sending emails in and stuff like that about certain things, so I know I forwarded them to staff, and I think that's why they started. So, but having it clear as this, I think it makes sense. Councilor Norbury and then Councilor Jilek.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. Thanks, Councilor Bertrand, for bringing this one forward. You know, I'm starting to recognize, been hearing more from the golfing community this last year. And for me, I think that's we need to recognize that maybe there's deficiencies there, and we need to address them. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. My only question for staff, I did ask staff this one, but I'll ask it in this meeting, is do they have capacity to work on this report?
Ms. Scott?
I would follow up with the question of what is the timeline council's expectation is for receiving this report?
I don't think there's expectations. I know, like, again, I mentioned staff was already starting to work on some of it, so I'm not sure. There's no, I'm not into putting timelines on, I mean, again, that's why I asked about the previous comments we were debating earlier about timelines, but to me, it's, you know, we got to understand the fullness of staff plates. You know, I don't think there's a timeline, Ms. Scott. I think it's just a process.
Okay, so then going forward, like coming into the budget season, staff are planning on bringing forward some recommendations for some improvements anyway. But will we have the capacity to do it? Yes, once we wrap up some of the other bigger projects that we have going on. We can spend time on working on this.
Okay, appreciate that. Councilor Jilek and then Councilor Bertrand.
It's not, like, I'm in support of this. I'm also in support of whole asset management. Like, I think that's something that we've talked about from the get-go. I know since I've come on council, and where do we prioritize the golf course in that asset management assessment? I think that, for me, if a golf course asset management came to me, my first question before I even voted on any kind of changes would be, where are we at with the other assets within the community? We had an urban systems report come to us about water and sewer, and we've not made any decisions based on that. We have other community buildings in our community that including the fire hall, that we need to look at, I believe. So for me, while I see the golf course as important within this, I feel like we need to as a whole community, so like as a whole envelope. And I don't know what that looks like, so I guess for me, I'd like to hear about that and where we are with that before I would vote on this, even understanding the timelines would be different.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, get clarity from staff for sure. You know, staff has not stopped working on asset management. They're working on asset management, you know, I'm not gonna say daily or hourly, but everything is under asset management now, and it's a program they've been using, and that's our roads, our water and our sewer lines and buildings. To me, we can't hold it up that it was staff's fault in regards to assessment of town hall. That was previous council, I'm picking a color. And then arguing with, no, I'll be honest, it came from residents. You know, nobody wanted to change this or didn't want to do that. So you got to make decisions, right? I mean, we all talk about going back out to the resident, you know, whether that's for the golf cart storage facility, fire hall. Well, then we better listen because we've said we want to listen to them. But clarity from staff for sure, but they're always working on asset management through the whole corporation. Ms. Scott?
Yeah, that's correct. Would we prefer to be further ahead in our asset management plan than we are? Yes, absolutely. But we are still working on the whole asset management plan. And then in terms of bringing some potential capital projects forward to council, it's not just the golf course. We will be bringing some recommendations to council forward for some capital improvements to some of our other buildings. And then that can be debated by council when we go through those budget discussions. But yes, we are still currently working on an asset management plan. We would like to be further ahead than we are, but we are still doing work on it.
Follow up, Councillor?
Yeah, just to ask you, because maybe what I'm imagining in my head, what an asset management plan looks like is different than what it actually looks like. So I feel like I just thought that there would be like a report and here's where we sit with our, like when you talk about that it's going into a system, that would spit something back out for us to look at on a regular basis. Is that?
I think when staff is further along than they are today.
Okay.
Now, will it be printed out and served us on a piece of paper? Probably wouldn't understand it. I think that's where Ms. Scott comes in and talks about, you know, coming forward with some capital projects as they go through their asset management system. So whether that's the windows on Town Hall, you know, I don't know that for sure, so I want to make that clear to council. Ms. Scott hasn't said that she's putting in the windows for the budget. But whether that's a public works shard, you know, we've talked about the fire hall previously. You know, previous council, we knew there were some issues, roof and all that. You know, there was money put to the side to get an estimate on what would it cost to renovate it compared to building a new one. Well, we never got the cost on what it was to renovate it. You know, listening to staff, you know, the people they hire say like, I would not, you know, go that angle, and this is why. So that's what they did. So I mean, again, as they enter things, it doesn't just spit out paper. It comes forward with when they're assessed. Waterways, just like, you know, Ms. Scott, you can jump in and stuff, but it's no different than the asphalt replacement that staff is going through on that capital. You know, they're checking the sewer lines, the water lines, they're confirming the sidewalks, they're confirming catch basins. That's all under asset management. So they're picking it up as they go. Ms. Scott?
Thank you. The asset management plan, in addition to, I mean, it lists all the assets, it lists the age of the assets, it lists whereabouts they are in terms of need of replacement, but a comprehensive asset management plan takes in a lot more too. For example, it will tell you the probability of failure and the severity of failure, so that can help you make those decisions too. So maybe Town Hall needs a lot of work, but if it were to fail, what would be the severity of that failure versus something else to help you make those decisions when you're coming with your capital budgets about when we need to make decisions where we need to spend our money. The comprehensive asset management plan brings all of that information for you to help make those decisions.
Okay. Follow up?
Yeah, so if I was curious and I just came in and talked to the CAO and say, okay, can you give me what the asset management looks like for the town hall as of today?
I think it'll come forward in report.
Yeah, but that's what I'm meaning, like, so it's easy, like, it's kind of a push of a button thing.
I don't know. Ms. Scott?
But it would never come, what I'm understanding is it's not coming before us unless we are discussing budget and capital improvements.
Yes, when it comes forward. But Ms. Scott?
So when the initial plan is completed, I mean, that comes forward to council. So council has a chance to review that whole entire asset management plan. It's also a public-facing document, so the public can see what's in that asset management plan, and it's something that would be reviewed fairly frequently to make sure that it is up to date as we do improvements or if there are changes in building condition, et cetera.
Thank you. Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. By bringing forward this notice of motion, by no means was taking away from any of our other assets. I just feel like we've gotten to the point of maintaining the golf course, and we're at a point now where that's not good enough anymore. As well, we're probably one of the busiest golf courses in the Peace region because of the fact that Chetwynd doesn't have one. So we're attracting out-of-town people, not only to golf, but to buy memberships. We're making money. It's time to invest.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question with the recommendation on the floor. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to councillors' business. Thanks, Councillor Norbury, Councillor Noxana for your reports. I've seen some in the email from Councillor Dussault. If I can please remind council with your liaison reports to please fill out that sheet and get it to Ms. Scott so we can see it, and email it to council so we're kept up to date on what's going on with your liaison groups. Please, it's really, really important as things come through and then all of a sudden they come forward and nobody's aware of it. So it's really important. It's really important to fill those out. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I did not fill out a council liaison sheet, but I have an update because we had a Trora board meeting. I apologize. I'll work harder on getting the sheet filled out. They're getting some final edits done on their website before it goes live, which is really exciting because it will encompass memberships for the member organizations that the public can go on and purchase a group of memberships for our local clubs. The golf tournament was super successful and they projected about $18,000 in profits. The Mountain Bike Association hosted a glow ride back in the summer where they had glow lights on bikes and went around town, and they're hoping to do it again in the fall when it gets dark a little bit earlier so people like me can participate. WNMS opened its disc golf course and had a couple dozen people come out, and they're hosting weekly disc golf playing nights and have had some really good success getting people out to try out the course and see what it's all about. Trora is working closely with Selkirk on the Trails Master Plan. The WNMS hosted their 25th Emperor's Challenge, and it was really well attended, followed by an event at the TR Days Fairgrounds called Emperor's Village. And Chief Wilson came out from West Moberly First Nation and met at the Emperor's Village with some of the Trora Youth Division. And the youth were really excited to tell him about what they're doing and what they're planning. And he was impressed and invited them to come check out the Land Guardian program, which is pretty cool because there is some similarities in there about sustainable land use and things. So they thought it was really cool that they got an invitation. There is a fee for service going in. We had our meeting before the FMX show, but it has happened. It was really well attended and really great for the community to have. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else from council off the floor? Pretty late week. Majority or some of us were able to have an opportunity to meet with Minister Osborne, Minister of Health. We were invited to have a breakfast here in our community. There's some Northern Health representations there. We just had a general talk about the health center and healthcare within Tumbler Ridge. Myself and Ms. Scott were invited to do a tour of the health center with Minister Osborne, and it was a tour. It was well done. It was great to meet some of the newer staff. One of our lab manager, son actually emailed Minister Osborne when she. I think she was the mayor of Tofino at the time. I'm not sure if they had traveled there, but they were living in Saskatchewan, and she put the two names together and realized it was her son that had emailed her when she was the mayor of Tofino. So, I think it's really important that we're starting to see the ministers coming to the Peace region. I think that's really, really important. I know Rabi with the Ministry of Forest was hoping to make it to Tumbler Ridge. He never did. I went into Dawson Creek and met with him through the PRRD. But I think we're seeing a lot more ministers start to travel in the north, just to be, you know, I haven't seen it in a long time. You know, doesn't matter what government, in my opinion. It was different when we had the Liberals in government, because our MLA was from the region. But I don't remember seeing him bring many ministers to the region. So, you know, I think that's important. I think that's the important dialogue that, you know, us as elected officials, council, when we're at the UBCM, and your dialogue, and not always at the minister meeting, but even just out and about. I think it's important. We're starting to see those people, and it was, you know, listening to Minister Osborne, it was important for her to come to Tumbler. That was one of her important spots to come. So I think it was important. Other than that, I had a fairly late week. I was away for holidays for a week, then got back and had to go back and pick my truck up. So my truck is home now. That's all I have. Just before I go, I think Councillor Julick's going to push a button. Again, if I can only emphasize on these, filling out the forms in regards to your liaisons. I think it's really, really important to get them emailed to council. I think it's important to have that information in front of us to build a dialogue, but also gives us an opportunity to ask questions or email you to get clarity if sometimes things are said. I'll wait till Councillor Dessau's is added to our next agenda. I have a lot of questions in regards to the last meeting that she attended with some comments made, and it was through the Geopark. There's some information in there. I mean, I won't say that I have lots of questions, but some information in there, and I think that's where it's important to build a dialogue that now I can, you know, ask those questions as we get the chance to read them. So, Councillor Julick.
I was just going to go to the closed meeting.
Okay, perfect. Oh, question answer period. Miss, got any emailed in questions?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Julick.
That the September 2nd, 2025 regular meeting of council be closed to the public according to Section 91A, C, J, and K from the Community Charter to permit discussions about personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality, labor relations or other employee relations, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. 5-minute recess.